Back at Rebel headquarters, now another Rebel joins us, Bob Cesca. He's written Punishing the Health Insurance Cartel for Extortion and Fraud. That's up on HuffingtonPost.com right now. Bob, welcome back to the Young Turks.
Hey, Jake, how are you?
I'm good. So extortion and fraud, those are heavy words. Why do you think the health insurance cartel is committing extortion and fraud?
Well, this report that that AHIP released at the beginning of the week, commissioned by AHIP and performed by PricewaterhouseCoopers, was basically a threat to everybody, not just you and I, but the White House, congressional Democrats, the Finance Committee. This is basically, look, you guys passed health care reform. We're going to jack up your rates by 111%. Oh, and what they didn't add was that if health care reform isn't passed, they're probably going to continue to jack up our rates by 120, 130%. So it's essentially, as I described in my Huffington Post piece, it's essentially that scene from an action-adventure movie where the villain's got a gun to a hostage's head and says, okay, you talk, and the hostage is coerced into talking, and the villain shoots the hostage anyway.
I have seen that movie. Bob, here's what we're going to do. We got a bad connection with you. We're going to call you right back, okay?
Okay.
All right. We'll call, Anna's going to call you right back in a second. So the other thing that Bob talks about, while we're getting back on the phone, let me tell you, is the antitrust exemption that the healthcare has. These healthcare insurance companies have. Now, Nancy Pelosi came out today and said that, hey, you know what? They're talking about it in the Senate. Even Harry Reid is talking about taking that antitrust exemption away from them. Why not do it in the House as well? So the Democrats are coming in guns blazing, saying, you know, enough of this antitrust exemption. We can't have it. And look, that's a way to open up the competition, and that's a way to inject the actual free market into this. And that's why they can do that extortion and fraud that Bob is talking about, because if they don't have any real competition, it's not a real free market, well then, you know, and they have this exemption so they can have monopolies, well then, of course there won't be any real competition. Of course they can threaten you. Say, oh yeah, I'll raise your rates 100%. If you don't do as I tell you, I'll raise them 200%. That's not, does that sound like a free market to you? Does that sound like, you know, the great marketplace that people are talking about, that America is supposed to be, the unfettered free market? No, it doesn't sound to me. So, Bob, I hear you're back.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, how did they get this antitrust exemption? What is that all about?
Well, there was a law passed, and you know what? It slips my mind the name of it. But there were congressional hearings, I believe yesterday about it. Harry Reid was there testifying. Essentially, there was a law passed about 50 years ago, in which somehow, you know, the health insurance companies became exempted from antitrust laws, and it's basically the health insurance companies and baseball. Those are the only two industries that are not regulated by antitrust laws.
So
and
do you know what the...
Well, look, I mean, antitrust laws now are pretty weakened as they are, but to be entirely exempted from them is something extra special.
Now, how does that work on a practical level? So the federal government can't go in and say, well, you got a monopoly here, we're going to bust it up, right?
Right.
Why don't the state governments do that? When you go, I don't know if you know these answers, Bob, but I always wonder, when you go state by state, like a state like Alabama, where one of the companies is a 90% monopoly, why don't they do something about it? Is it a simple matter that the lobby has so much money that they buy off the local legislators?
Well, you know what, it could have a lot to do with the notion of why it's important to not allow health insurance companies to sell across state lines, which is one of the big Republican, quote-unquote, solutions to health care. And what that would create is essentially massively deregulated states, other states where all the health insurance companies would then converge. And you would essentially have a serious haves and have-nots issue where, you know, some states would have, you know, the entire healthcare or the health insurance industry was set up in that state because the laws were more advantageous there. So instead what we have is more of a level playing field, if you can even call it that, where they basically have to sell insurance within their own state borders.
But, you know, if we combine the Republican and Democratic ideas, then it might not be so bad, right? If you say you can sell across state lines, so they don't have these monopolies within the state, but we're lifting the antitrust exemption so that you can't create monopolies that are nationwide, then couldn't that work, Bob?
It might. The problem is that would create some serious sort of states' rights issues, where the federal government is then getting in and amongst a massively complicated healthcare reform bill in the first place. Then we're getting it into areas that could potentially just gunk it up even further. I think that would probably be my chief concern,
right,
if I were to try to include something like that.
And we had R.J. Eskow on the show, and his concern is that if you do go state by state and you could do opt-outs, then at every stage it becomes political, and at every stage the tremendous money that the healthcare insurance lobby has becomes more and more important, and whether they buy local legislators or whatever it might be. So those are all things to watch out for. And with the healthcare insurance industry, as you write in your column today, there's a lot to look out for. So, Bob, thanks so much for joining us. Everybody, you can check out Bob's article on HuffingtonPost.com. You can go to his own website, bobcesca.com. And, of course, his book is One Nation Under Fear. You should check that out as well. Bob, thanks so much for being on.
Thanks a lot, Jay.
All right. Young Turks. We're back.